Hello everyone and welcome to your next edition of Computer Training with Alex Spencer. The first thing you're probably noticing right out of the box is that we're virtualizing a PC inside of a Mac. So if I minimize this window right here, you'll see we're obviously in a Mac. There's the typical dashboard. You can see just kind of the gray screen and the typical Apple icon up at the top. If you want to learn more about virtualizing machines within machines, whether you're on a Mac or a PC or you just want to try a bunch of different operating systems, and we learned about those operating systems in the previous films, you can learn about that in the separate movie, How to Set Up a Virtual Machine with Windows XP, and then just substitute in whatever operating system you're looking to put in there. But I want to kind of walk you through a training in this video of what I do when I get a brand new Windows PC. What I would typically do if I had just left Best Buy with a brand new laptop or desktop in hand, turned on the desktop, got the typical Windows splash screen. What are the first things that I would typically do here? Well, the first thing I would do is look down here for any warnings or anything like that. A lot of people get scared of the shield icon. They think it's something like bad or different, and they're not quite sure what it is. I'm just going to go ahead and double click on this, and basically it just says, hey, do you want to turn on automatic updates? So that's one thing that every Windows machine from Windows XP forward has, is the ability to install updates. It's always a good thing. So if you ever see a pop-up bubble come up here that says, hey, install updates or keep your computer up to date, be sure to do that. And chances are, if you get a computer that's from Best Buy or something like that, that's been on the shelf for about 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 months, chances are the first thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and run those updates, because during those 4 or 5 months there's probably been quite a few software updates, new drivers, things like that that have come out for your computer that are going to just make it run a whole heck of a lot smoother. So I'm not going to bore you to death watching me update this machine to the latest version of Windows, because that could take probably 3 or 4 hours right out of the gate, but I would say that's the first thing you want to do, is go ahead and just basically follow the prompts, say yes, I want to go ahead and keep my computer up to date, and I do want to set up automatic updates. Say every day at 3 a.m. if you leave your computer on. Otherwise, you might do every day at, say, noon to 1 o'clock when you're typically at lunch would be a good idea. Stuff like that. Go ahead and get those set up. The other shield we have here is a red X, so I'm going to go ahead and double click on that, and it's saying, hey, we don't have any virus protection on this computer. So that's one of the things that we definitely want to go out and get. And you'll remember from a previous tutorial that I said paying for virus software or antivirus or anti-malware software is a bad idea, and it is. So I'm going to show you some free places you can go to get some free antivirus and anti-malware software. Before we do that though, you'll notice that I'm using Internet Explorer. In fact, to get to the internet, I went here and then I clicked on this blue E. As a web designer and somebody that does a lot of website work, we never use Internet Explorer because of a number of things. One, it always renders websites funky. Two, it doesn't have any developer tools really. Three, it just is kind of behind the W3C in terms of actually letting us do certain things we want to do with HTML and CSS. And if all those words were a whole bunch of jargon to you, then let me put it in a little bit simpler terms. Trust me, Internet Explorer isn't as good as some of the other options out there. So what is a good option to use? Well, we have to get some other internet browser on this computer, so this one time we are going to go ahead and use Internet Explorer, but we're going to use the search feature here, and we're going to search out Mozilla, the people that make it, Firefox. We're going to go to that download, so I'm going to go ahead and finish typing in Mozilla Firefox here, and we should get a pop-up screen that brings up the search results, and that's what we want. We want the free Mozilla download, and we want to go ahead and install Firefox on our computer. When this box comes up, folks, we might as well take the opportunity to learn this right out of the gate. We have two options. We have run, save, or cancel. If we hit run, what will happen is it'll download the file directly to our computer and then immediately start opening it up. And that's perfectly fine. If we maybe want to just save it to our computer first and then be the ones to physically instantiate or get the process started for the install, we could hit save. Me personally, I like to save myself that step, so I'm just going to hit run. Starts the download into our temporary downloads folder so we can see where it's going, and it will take us about, looks like, 10 to 15, 25 seconds for it to finish downloading. In the meantime, I want to point out this is the icon we're going to use to get on the internet from now on. So no more of that E, we're going to use this Fox icon to get on the internet. And the big reason here is, like I said, we get developer tools that you'll learn about later on in some of the classes. We get faster internet, so our computer will just seem faster, especially if we're the type of people that spend most of our time on the internet. It'll seem a lot faster. Plus, it'll render the web pages a lot cleaner and a lot better. It's built to handle some of the more fringe things that are out there with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, stuff like that. So we definitely want to use Firefox going forward instead of that blue E. So we're going to go ahead and continue to follow the prompts where we just hit yes, okay, run. I don't even read those anymore. I just pretty much say, okay, yes, I want to keep moving forward until I know it's done installing. Looks like it's pretty close to being done, so I'm going to go ahead and minimize these two Internet Explorer windows. I don't really need to import anything from Internet Explorer because I don't have anything in Internet Explorer. And we're done. We now have Firefox. It goes ahead and boots itself up, and this is a much better, faster, easier way for us to surf the internet. So I'm going to come down here to my toolbar. I'm going to right click and hit close on those two Internet Explorer tabs, and I'm going to blow up Firefox. So that was the step one. That's the first thing I do in a new computer is get a decent browser on that computer. Something that has the ability to do address bar searches here or Google searches here, something that can render websites better. Just all kinds of good stuff built into Firefox that I like and can use a lot better. Now let's go to one of my favorite websites for free software so we can pick up some antivirus and some anti-malware software. Let's hop over to downloads.com. So I'm just going to put in www.downloads.com, hit enter, and we're going to go over to cnet.com/downloads. It's going to automatically detect that we have a Windows computer, and it's going to suggest some great software for us over here on the right hand side. We see that we've got the top 10 most popular downloads, and it's no coincidence that AVG Free has been downloaded over 1 million times. It's a great free, pretty much all you need antivirus software. So again, if somebody tries to really hard sell you on Norton antivirus or Symantec antivirus or any of that stuff, chances are, if it was me, you probably don't need it. Unless you're really surfing some of the seedier parts of the internet, you really don't need anything other than this nice free AVG antivirus edition. And again, folks, I'm not going to bore you to death making you watch me install these. Just again, go to downloads.com, click this link here, download, and do the exact same thing I did to install Firefox, which is hit that run. As soon as it's done downloading, it'll run it. It'll be on your computer. What's the next thing that I download? Well, it's all in this location. It's very, very easy. It's number 5, anti-malware. We talked about this in the last video. There is a difference between viruses and malware, and therefore you need protection from both viruses and malware. So make sure you get this as well. And then whenever you turn on your computer, both your antivirus and your anti-malware icons should be sitting right here. If they're not, you may want to go ahead and set that up in the preferences panel right here, usually in the tools or the file preferences of both of those programs. You'll be able to see that you can actually have those fire up as soon as your computer is booted up or as soon as you log into the computer. If you're not a fan of Firefox, folks, which is, again, this browser that we're using to get on the internet, Google Chrome is another great alternative, and it's number 19 right here. So feel free to download those 3 software packages as well. The next thing that I want to talk about is the fact that we are going to be doing some coding in the near future. So we're going to need a text editor. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Well, I already have Microsoft Word. Isn't that a text editor? No, it's a word processing program. There's a complete difference between a word processor and a text editor. Now, what's the difference? Well, when it comes to coding, the big difference is a word processor already puts a whole bunch of obscure, weird, random code into the stuff that you're typing the second you even save a file. Whereas a text editor is just raw text being saved into a certain format, and that's what we really want. So for a good text editor that we can use to do some coding with, I'm going to search out a program called Sublime Text. And that's one of my favorites right now. It's got a lot of traction lately in the programming community. It's a good, solid program to use. So we're going to do Sublime Text 2, and we're going to choose this link right here to download it. And we want to go ahead and download it. If you're on a 64-bit edition, such as like Windows 7, chances are you're on 64. Windows Vista, chances are you're 64-bit. If you're on Windows XP machine, chances are you're not 64-bit. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this one. The great thing about Sublime Text 2, folks, is that it has some color formatting. It'll do some automatically fill-ins for you. So back in the good old days of text editors, we didn't have these things, and it was much, much, much harder for us to actually code, because we'd forget things like semicolons, we'd forget things like closing off our parentheses. And as we go through the training, you'll see me do some of those things anyway, and you'll see where it can really pay to have a good text editor available. Now, this text editor does cost money. I believe they want $49 for it right now, but the cool thing is they're not obnoxious about it. You can use it for free. You can see I've downloaded and installed it, and I can use it for free as much as I want. But after a certain period of time, it'll just remind you, hey, you're running on free right now. Please pay us for the software that we built, this brilliant software that we provided. And so it'll just bring up kind of what they call kind of annoyance prompts every so often if you don't. And you'll also see it be unregistered. But for the time being, it's really, really good program to have. So there's our text editor. I'm going to intentionally leave this text editor up, and I'm going to intentionally leave Firefox up. There's one other program I want to show you how to download, and then we're going to get into a couple of other basic computer usages, specifically software usages, before we wrap up this video. The next program that I want you to download is either an Office suite through Microsoft Office, or I want you to download OpenOffice. Now, I'm not going to go out and spend the $200 to $300 to get Word, Excel, and PowerPoint put on my virtual PC when you can see I already have it here on my Mac in real life. But what happens if you don't want to buy Microsoft Office for your computer? You just don't have the money, or you just don't want to spend the money for it. What's a good free alternative? Well, that's OpenOffice. We're going to do a Google search for OpenOffice and get that installed. So here's OpenOffice right here. We can do it from download-free. That seems like a weird kind of wonky site to do it. I'm going to do it outside of these advertised links. Notice these top two in yellow are ads related to OpenOffice. I'm going to go for the real one that actually got to the top of the search engines on its own without having to pay its way there, and that's obviously the Apache OpenOffice. That's what I actually want to download. So I'm going to go ahead and click I want to download OpenOffice. This takes quite a while to download and install. So again, I'm not going to bore you to death watching, a bar scroll across the screen while I download and install it. I'll do that off camera and it'll be ready to go for future videos. But this is a great place to go for a substitute for free for Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So we've got our antivirus and anti-malware added, we've got our text editor added, we've got our Firefox added, we're good to go. So let's take a quick look at the text editor and just talk about some very basic computer skills to again make sure we're on the same page. The first thing I want to do is just save this file and talk about the file system in Windows. So the first thing I'm going to do is go up here to File, Save As, and you'll notice it's got me in the Sublime 2 folder. A lot of people don't realize how folders on a machine work. So real quick, I want to kind of start at the root here, which is this My Computer. And you'll notice at the very root of our computer, we've got our C drive, which is kind of our hard drive. That's where everything gets stored. You remember in the previous version of the training, we talked about the hard drive being the trunk of the car. That's where all the files get stored. Then we've got a CD drive. That's our CD-ROM, where we can put CD disks in and out of our computer. We've got a shared documents folder where anybody, no matter if they're logged in as Alex, if they're logged in as Carrie, if they're logged in as Bob or Sue or Jane, they can access that particular folder across profiles. And then we've got the administrator's documents, which we won't use. So we're going to hop into the C drive here and see Documents and Settings, Program Files, or Windows. Where do I typically save files? Well, actually, I jump over here to the desktop, and I'll typically save them in a desktop. And the desktop, the great thing about that is that's the thing that you see as soon as you log into your computer. This is your desktop. Right now, the only thing we have on our desktop right now up here is a shortcut to launch Firefox, and down here in the bottom right is a shortcut to get to the recycling bin. But let's say I want to save a file on our desktop. Let's say I want to start a very basic HTML file. I'm going to go File, Save As. I'm going to click on my desktop. I'm going to save it to index.html. We'll go and save that there. And now you'll notice my desktop has index.html. That's where I saved it. That's where it is. Now let's say I want to go a little bit further with this. Let's say I want a folder on my desktop. Well, I can right click here, go to New, go to Folder, and I can create a new folder called Testing. Now if I want to drag that file into testing, I can absolutely do that. And let's go ahead and close this file. So now when I go to close this file, or when I go to actually save it, it's going to save right back to desktop. Why is that? Because that's the last place I saved it to. If I drag this file back in, it's going to try and override over the existing 0-byte index.html file, which is fine. If I want to open this file again, I'm going to go File, Open, and I'm going to have to go into the testing folder. So think of it just like a folder cabinet in an office. Once you move a file from one place, which might just be in the cabinet, to inside a folder that's inside the cabinet, you're going to have to find it inside the folder that's inside the cabinet. It's no longer just in the cabinet here, it's inside that folder. So let's go ahead and take a look at, again, why I kind of recommend this text editor. I'm going to open up this HTML file. The first thing you'll notice is that we get color coding. So while I don't really want you to worry about this code necessarily or any of this markup, what I do want you to pay attention to is the fact that it's keeping everything separate for me. Also, if I ever want to close anything, or if I forget any commas or anything like that, it's going to keep it all nice and neat for me. It's going to try and do some auto indenting, which may or may not work for me, but it just keeps things nice and simple. If I was to try and do this with a word processor and we open this file in a word processor, then what you would see at the top, instead of just being plain text, the second I got done with this file, you'd see a whole bunch of gobbledygook up here that the word processor actually added to make it look prettier than it is. That's why we need a text editor, so we don't end up with all of this gook after we end up saving the file. We just want the pure text to be there. The other cool thing about a text editor is we can save it as any type of file. So if I was building a website and maybe I need an HTML file, I could do that. If I was maybe coding something in Python, I could save it in .py, and all of a sudden we see now this isn't a .python syntax or Ruby or anything like that. And we're getting kind of deep here, so that's about as far as I'm going to go. We're going to save everything else for the rest of the training. But for those of you that are wondering what we're going to need to get through the rest of the training, make sure you've got a working Windows or Mac computer. You've got a good text editor. Sublime can be downloaded for Windows or for Mac. You can see I've got it installed on my Mac right here. We also want some sort of copy of an Office product, so either OpenOffice or Microsoft Office as well. And that's pretty much all we need to set up a PC. In the next training video, we will talk about how to set up a couple of programs on the Mac. There's a few differences on how to install programs on the Mac, but it's actually very, very simple. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me, alex@alexspencer.net, or leave a comment in the video below. Also, be sure to take the quiz below the video. It'll help cement this knowledge. And also be on the lookout for an email announcing office hours so that we can do a live Q&A. We're going to be doing it through a really cool thing called Google Plus Hangouts. So it'll only be open to the first 10 people that get on, but it will be recorded and posted for everybody else to see, view, and enjoy. But if you really have a question for me about some of the videos we've done in the past, or would like to chat with me, just make sure you're one of the first 10 people to join us at the Google Hangout. Thanks so much for joining me once again, everybody. Hope you're enjoying this training as much as I am. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.